It is the Bee-a-thon 4 and more here from the ENTSOC 2014, brought to you by the Insect News Network. I'm your host, Ian Brady, and this is Mr. Noah Fram-Schwartz. Noah, welcome to the Insect News Network.
Hey, thank you.
Absolutely. Now, the important thing to understand, of course, when you're talking about science and the future of science is the collaboration of great ideas with great technology, and there's a very few booths that jumped out at me as much, literally jumped out at me, than the spec stand booth here. And Noah is the progenitor of this item, a very simple item that has really, really big it's for little things to make them big, and it's a brilliant design. Noah, tell me a little bit about what a spec stand is.
So a spec stand is this specimen manipulation device that allows you to get the exact perspective that you need, whether it's for taxonomy, imaging, or simply just viewing. These were all taken with our photomicrography rig. So you can see we used our special green plate for this. By default, they come in black and white. We also, if you remove the swappable plate, there's the gray color, the neutral gray. So you can just slide that in the back. So that's one of our special features. The other special feature is the magnetic base, which is really awesome. One of the big problems with other specimen stands on the market is that they'll tend to fall over.
Sure.
So this sticks very well.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Now, of course, folks,
cool.
Can I pick this one up? Yeah.
Of course.
Okay, so this is the important thing to understand. Look at that. That's a wasp or an ant. What do we got here?
Yeah, queen ant.
A queen ant. There we go. It's a queen ant. And the mounting and display of insects is one of the most rarefied arts and sciences in the world. It's one of the things that led to the entire creation of entomology back in the day, because bug collection is a standard part of entomology. Right. But for researchers, especially somebody in the field, how to manage and manipulate a specimen can be one of the most baffling things, and there's nothing more discouraging than finding a fantastic specimen that something breaks. The wing breaks off, the leg breaks off, or something like that. Now, Noah, let me ask you: are you an entomologist by training?
I am not. No.
You are. What is your forte then?
Well, I'm working on getting an engineering degree, and I also have a bit of experience in photography.
Photography, very cool. So that's the other side of cultural entomology: is that the expression, the manifestation of the human-insect connection in the arts, the sciences, the humanities. And I've said several times, many times, almost every day of my life now, that the digital era, the 21st century of our digital photography, microscopy, audio, it's revolutionizing the way we see the microcosm. So which came first for you, Noah? Was it an interest in photography or an interest in insects?
So it was an interest in photography first. And then I realized, wow, there are these things right beneath our eyes, these beautiful insects that have so much detail, so much color, so much texture. And so I just started photographing them and became enthralled.
How about that?
Right.
Imagine that, folks. That's how it happens, It's like a little door opens and then the entire microcosm becomes a fascination. And especially when you can work with such wicked technology. Right. Now, just wanted to let you know, this is a collaboration between two very, very special universities, the estimable Harvard University, and then of course, you are
Brandeis.
Brandeis, and what is the mascot of Brandeis?
The owl.
The owl, the Brandeis owl. So
yes.
It's the crimson and the owls. There you go, folks. And so you worked with some professors on the technology, and now you are taking this into the general public. Is it going to be a consumer product, or is it mostly for scientists?
It's for anyone who's doing insect imaging, anyone who is doing taxonomy. Mm-hmm. It's also, it could be for anyone who's looking at small things.
Sure. Yeah, it's a great hobbyist thing, and it's small, they're relatively inexpensive, and brilliant design. And so let's talk about the bugs for just a moment, Noah.
Yep.
What would you say was the insect that took you in, what was the deep dive for you into the microcosm?
Gosh, I don't know. There's so many that I love.
What was the first one, though, when you went, that's a picture that I've never thought I would take in a million years?
Gosh, probably just a fly that was in my backyard.
Flies. It's amazing how many people, when I ask that question, they say a fly. They observe ants, they love spiders, they adore honeybees, but when it comes to photography, because the flies move so damn fast, you're not used to seeing how much amazing structures and their micro design, and it's really quite fascinating.
Right.
And what kind of fly? Just like a house fly?
Like a tachinid fly.
Yeah, just a tachinid fly, the big hairy ones, right?
Right.
And then, so what do you think, if you were to put a message out to the world about the importance of the digital impact on the understanding of the human-insect connection, what would you say?
Well, I think that the thing that's really special to me is how at least my connection between them. I think the more I observe them, the more I photograph them, the more I learn about them, and the better photographs I can take.
Yeah.
So the better I can understand their behavior.
Yeah.
And I think their behavior is so fascinating. Sometimes I'll be photographing something, and I'll take off, and I'll fly around for 5 minutes, and I'll come back and it'll land in the exact same spot, the exact same orientation, and it makes it easy to photograph,
Yeah.
One other thing that I really like is I'll be photographing leaf hoppers sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
And they'll be on some grass, and I'll start photographing them, and then they'll realize I'm photographing them and go to the other side.
Yeah, right.
And then I go to the other side, and they go around.
Yeah, exactly.
And
They
it's
play
like a
hide and
game of
seek,
hide and seek, exactly. And I just think it's so cool to be able to connect to the insect on such a deep and yet such a shallow level at the same time.
It's communication. It's like the basic communication, And they have the same 5 senses that we do. They just process them differently.
Right.
But then on the other side of the spectrum is when you get the ones that totally want to see what's up. The jumping spiders, the praying mantis. What about hoverflies?
Oh boy.
They are a hoot.
I love them. I love aviation and flying.
Oh, yeah,
so it's so cool to see them, stay in the exact same spot and just their head stays in the same spot.
These are the ones that. Now the thing about hoverflies, I do shows called Surf's Up. It's one of my favorite shows.
Yeah.
It's all about the surfidae, and those are hoverflies, and they're commonly mistaken for bees. They're incredibly important pollinators, and they're incredibly important beneficial predators because the larvae of syrphid flies are often the most effective against soft-bodied aphids and things like that. But the fun part is that I tell people, like the ladybug, the roly-poly, and the hoverfly, the dragonflies too, the hoverfly will just play with you all day long. If you hang out in the garden, they will just zip around and watch you, and the adults barely eat. So as an adult hoverfly, they're pretty much just trying to catch their last, what's cool in the world before I...
Yeah, I've had a lot of fun photographing them while they are in flight. So one thing I have done is you can kind of go out to them and snap, and they'll take off. And one thing I've realized, I looked at some photos right as they were, jumping off, and I realized that some of them would kind of jump backwards and go upside down before they started flying.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought that was the coolest thing.
Absolutely.
I just
They pull 5 Gs in each direction.
Wow.
The only insects that do better are the dragonflies, which pull 7 Gs. But the little hoverflies, I always say they kind of look that from the mothership.
Yep.
They got the little dome on top, and they're watching us, and then they fly away back up to the mothership.
Yeah.
All right. Well, listen, Noah, it was a delight. I love what I do.
So
it's the Beathon 4 and more, folks, and all bets are off. The entire horizon of our future is open, and entomologists are the people who are going to get you there. So thanks for your time.
All right. Thank you so much for having me.
We'll be back for more. All right. Specstand.com. And as anybody who's watched the show before knows, the Insect News Network is all about innovation into the intellectual frontiers of our civilization. And my next interview is special for 2 reasons. I get to meet one of the most prestigious publishing houses anywhere on the planet, and I'm being interviewed at the very same time by them. So it's a 2-for-1 here on the Beathon 4, and I'm pleased to invite to the Insect News Network Mr. Ian Sherman. He is the senior commissioning editor for the Oxford Publishing House, and his specialty is in biology, and he is a developing expert in the world of entomology as well. So, Ian, welcome to the Insect News Network.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely, great to have you here. Now, it was delightful to meet your whole team here, and you're doing some special interviews. So let's take a moment just so the listeners know how important the connection between OUP and the ESA is for this year.
Well, this is obviously a very special year because the ESA have made this big step to actually move from self-publishing their journals to entrusting us with their entire range of periodicals, 8 periodicals. So it's a big deal.
It is a big deal.
And it's a leap of faith on their part, and a big responsibility on ours.
Sure.
So, an important year for us.
And of course, Oxford Press goes back how many years
We
back?
go back over 400 years, so we are the oldest press in the world.
That's pretty humbling, to be honest.
Well,
that's a very special thing to be meeting you here, and it's also very special that such an important group as the ESA and the work that entomologists do is being incorporated into this prestigious house.
Yeah, and I think if I was going to sum up the relationship, it's about mission synergy, that we are a university press. We exist to spread knowledge, and our intention, our hope, and our belief is that combination of the partnership with ESA is going to increase the discoverability of all their journal content for the benefit of, hopefully, of science and their members.
Absolutely, and of course discoverability is the key to anything in this jungle, the new frontiers of the internet and the mobile and digital space. And as I like to tell people, that the message of the Insect Tribe and everybody who's working on to advocate on behalf of the knowledge of the world of entomology can really benefit from the digital era in a way that nobody in the past has ever been able to do. The information is all right there, and now it's about putting it into context. And that's certainly what a publishing house can help do. You know, the packaging, the branding, the messaging, the marketing, and the fantastic team that you get to work with as well. So now I understand you might have a couple of interesting questions for me too. Is that right?
I think we might.
And this is where we turn to the other camera. Hello! And thank you to Jessica Schillings for being the production assistant on this segment of the BFI.
Thank you both.
So please just tell us about yourself and why you're here and what you get out of the ESA meeting.
Marvelous. Well, this is my first ESA. I'm delighted to be here, and I was invited by the organizers of the event. So the Insect News Network is a media platform really for the exploration of the human-insect connection. On the Insect News Network, we take you into the world of insects beyond the creepy and the crawly to the fun, the fascinating, the profound, and even the sublime. And the tagline for the show is, it's not just about insects, it's about us. I like to explore the field of cultural entomology. With one half of my brain, I tell the world that I might be the only professional cultural entomologist on the planet. I'm sure there's others out there, though. And then with the other half of my brain, I tell people that I'm an ambassador for the Insect Tribe. As a cultural entomologist, it's really to show a light not just on the research and the science of the insects, but how the connections, parallels, and influences manifest in the arts, the humanities, the social sciences, future thinking, technology, things like that. And then, along the way, I get to profile the people who are making the changes, the scientists, the artists, the innovators, and it becomes just as fascinating. It's almost like, Ian, I can talk about any topic on the planet, and it's 1 or 2 degrees separated from something to do with insects. It's that fascinating.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So I'm going to ask you a difficult question now.
Oh,
this is
great.
an unprepared question.
Okay, Marvy.
If you were going to have a dinner party,
Okay.
and it was going to be a 3-course dinner. Okay? It's going to have a starter, it's going to have a main course, and it's going to have a dessert.
All right.
Can you, really quickly, this is totally unfair.
No, that's great.
Give us a delicious entomological meal,
Yes.
3-course meal.
Yeah.
Okay, starter.
I would. I would open up with a nice warm carrot soup drizzled with honey from the Hadramawt Valley in Yemen. It's the finest acacia honey in the world. It's the same honey that the Queen of Sheba brought to the court of Solomon, and it's renowned around the world for its medicinal properties as well as its delicious flavor. So that would be the starting course, maybe garnished with a bit of parsley. Next up, I would have probably a nice appetizer, maybe a brioche topped with some mealworm that I raised myself in a box, 2 or 3 cycles of mealworms to clear out all the pesticides and make sure they're nice and healthy. Just a little bit of oatmeal, totally sustainable, for the future, yeah. And I'd probably drizzle that with some tomato, maybe some chopped onion, and maybe a little bit of olive oil. And then for the entree, I would have organically raised quinoa with some flax oil, some sesame seeds, and then I'd take an escamole, probably either with ant larvae or honeybee drone larvae, lightly sautéed, mixed in with avocado and some spices, and that would be the entree.
Fantastic.
Well, and we could probably pull that off tonight, actually. I could probably figure that one out, But the cool thing about that question is, of course, just so there's a clarification. A lot of scientists have not heard about cultural entomology. It is a bona fide field of research. It was established at the International Congress of Entomology in 1984 in Hamburg, Germany, by Dr. Charles Hogue, who was at the time the curator of the LA County History Museum, Natural History Museum. And the entomophagy conversation conversation is part of a subset of ethno-entomology. Ethno-entomology is how we use insects in human culture. So it's silk production, it's honey, it's entomophagy. Cultural entomology is a much wider net. It expands. So entomophagy is a component of that, but it's just as interesting for me to talk about the nutritional value of insects as it is to talk about the restaurants around the world that are putting it on the menu and interview those people and people like yourself. I'm sure you dove into this topic for all the right reasons. All right, so that's the second question. Was there a third question, or are we done?
That's good.
That's about it.
No, you have to tell us why you think entomology is the most interesting thing in the world.
Well,
so we can put you in the montage.
Look at what we're doing. Look at where we are. Look at the people that we're talking to. The thing about entomologists, and not even just the science of entomology, the appreciation and affinity for insects, as I like to say, it has no boundaries. It doesn't matter what somebody does for a living, their educational level, their income level, their religious background, their philosophical beliefs, their gender. It doesn't matter. Every walk of life, every the four corners of the planet, people have an affinity for insects. And the reason why is they are the original nature show. Insects were with us from the beginnings of human consciousness, and they've been with us the entire time, and they will be with us the entire time. So the ideas, the inspiration, the metaphors that come from the insect world connect with the right people, because they're people who understand. They put the human life into a context that is it's existential, it's transcendent. It's like we're not the only game in town. We're the stewards of the earth, but the earth is not here for us, and the insects are one of the life forms that they operate quite independently from us. So when you find people who are into entomology and insects, you find the most curious, open-minded. They pay attention to detail. They like the understatements in life, and they also have a wicked sense of humor most of the time. And you can really just hang out with this group and find out how funny they are too. So we don't always take life too seriously, even though the work is very serious. So.
That's nicely said, isn't it?
How about that?
Excellent.
All right. Well, then, so what we're going to do is we're going to circle back around with Oxford Press. Now, just so you know, I've talked a lot on the last couple of Beathons. Got a book coming out. Well, the book is in the works, and it's called The Insect Tribe: How the People how the microcosm inspires the people who influence the world. And it's really a profile of all these amazing people. So that question about why do you like entomology is really getting put into this book. We talk about some of the grand ambassadors, such as Charles Darwin, of course, President Theodore Roosevelt. We talk about David Attenborough, of course.
Good.
And the fourth grand ambassador is Dame Miriam Rothschild. And then I get the chance to really talk about all the innovators in the field in the book as well, plus plenty of cool bug stories, and it's all good stuff. So it's one endless adventure, and I end every radio show. I start every radio show off with this quote: "I am dying by inches from not having anybody to talk to about insects." That's the Charles Darwin quote, right? And then I finish every show by saying, remember, as you go about your busy day, see the world with open eyes, and remember it's a big world out there, but most of it is microscopic. Until next time, we'll see you on the other side of the horizon.
No, this is,
Yeah, absolutely. No, of course not.
Oh, you can.
This is the epilogue. This is the off-the-camera epilogue here with the Oxford Press. Ian Sherman, welcome back to the Insect News Network.
Rewind.
Yes, rewind.
1974.
1974.
I was attending a scout camp in Bourne End, at Down House, which is the home of Charles Darwin.
Yes.
And in those days, the museum wasn't a museum; it was still in private ownership. The house, it was running. It was running. It was really run down. And as part of the, you remember the Scouts, you do a good turn every day. Well, we had to help in the garden at Charles Darwin's house. And as a reward, we got some fruit juice, and we were allowed to sit in Charles Darwin's chair in his old study. And
very cool.
At the time, I knew he was an important person, must have been an adventurer. I didn't realise his.
Yeah, it takes a while to understand the full impact.
I was 11 years old.
Right.
But I always remember that, sitting in his chair. Which is now roped off, and you can't go anywhere.
Oh, is that right? You're one of the early ins? Yeah, that's very cool. Now, as a doing what you do, though, so you had this experience at a young age, how has Darwin, what does he mean to you now?
Well, he's obviously, he's one of the greatest British scientists. He's on our banknotes.
Sure.
He's one of the greatest British great British people.
Yeah.
So he's obviously a role model to many people.
Sure.
And certainly somebody who a lot of people look up to. And I think the big difference, if we're going to make a comparison between the UK and the US,
Sure.
is that we take it for granted, wrongly, but we take it for granted that everyone has a Darwinian education, because we do.
Yeah. Yeah, you're the beneficiary of a system that really,
of that system.
Yeah, and it's
we don't have the divisions, the sad divisions that you do have here.
Yeah.
I'm not saying anything right or wrong about this.
No,
I'm just
absolutely,
saying
and this is important.
It's an undivided education that we benefit from. So.
Well, I tell people in entomology, and again, this is a perfect conversation for the Beathon because we try and see the full panorama of what it means to understand the human-insect connection. We talk a lot about honeybees and pollinators, but we also want to say that the educational path, the informational path, is as important as any research that's done, how the greater public understands what's going on. And the issue with the United States education at its core has become a blessing and a burden. The blessing is that the collaboration between industry and education is very rock solid. So at the research level, it's the best in the world.
Yes.
At the undergraduate and secondary level, we have really eroded in this country because we lost our compass, our roadmap. And I tell people in entomology, the English and the Germans, really the Victorian era was what really drove our modern understanding of insect science. And so the fact that Darwin had such an impact, and he was a bug guy to begin with, first and foremost. I love to tell people about that scene in Master and Commander. Now, that wasn't Darwin reference anyway, but, it just so happens that the Academy Award-winning movie, in the script, they decide to include the phasmid insect, like that changed the whole course of the film, right? To save the ship kind of thing. That's the sort of nuance and understatement that really, I think, British media and British literature and British film, it gets that sometimes the American doesn't. That the historical context should be layered in, and it can still make a great story. How does this play into education is that, the Darwinian, I don't want to say the Darwinian education. How would you describe it then? What is the word you made a distinction, like how the two educational systems work.
I'd say it was a Darwinian education, but the default is the theory of evolution. That's what everyone is taught.
Oh, okay.
So if you disagree with the theory of evolution, you do so, but only because you've had an original grounding.
Yes. Yeah, you have a reason to disagree.
Whether you choose to disagree, but you have a reason, whatever.
And a rationale. Well, and of course, you're suggesting the biggest conflict in American education today. Not only the biggest problem with American education is that teachers have been disempowered to discipline students. Yes. Number one problem. Number two is this issue of science versus creationism. And one of the things I like to do, I spend a lot of time interviewing other people about what they think and feel about insects, science, life in general. And we're all just telling stories. It's all just stories. Even the most refined scientific theory is a story that will change, right? And so I think the quantum understanding of the 21st century is that every story, every topic, every idea has a yes, no, and a maybe. And I appreciate the fact that the roots in the Darwinian evolution also allow you some more leverage to challenge the ideas of Darwinian evolution, And I think this could be a whole show into itself. So, maybe that's what we should do, Ian. We should do another radio show dedicated strictly to this topic. Really, have an American educator and have an English educator and just explore how this all plays out. Because you gotta imagine Darwin's probably sitting somewhere looking down, going, "What did I do?" Right? And Russell's over there going, "I knew this was coming," the whole time. Anyways, listen, it's been a delight. So I think throughout the course, before the weekend's over, we're going to circle back around with the Oxford Press and see what their takeaway from the weekend is. I think that's a big one. So I'm going to I'll have Jessica answer that question. Sound good?
Yeah.
Cheers. A nice one. Excellent. We'll be back for more. It's Beathon 2014. All right, so it's the double epilogue here. The second double epilogue of the day. I'm here back with Ian from Oxford Press, and we skipped one of the most important, pivotal questions of anybody who's a guest on the Insect News Network. What is your favorite insect, Ian?
So there's got to be a reason behind this, and so the reason is that it's the only insect I've kept as a pet.
It's a good one.
And bred, and So it's a very plain, common stick insect, but it's got so many memories.
The phasmids.
The phasmids.
The phasmids.
Because
now that's very cool, because just a moment ago I randomly brought up phasmids not knowing.
But that's why, because I've bred them from eggs and raised them. And
remarkable creatures, aren't they?
Yeah.
They're like the Zen creatures in the insect world.
Yes. So they are my favourite.
Now, did you have a first one? Like, was there one?
I had one.
And what was the name of that first phasmid?
Crikey. It was a male name. It was either Eric or Archer, and I can't.
Archer, the stick. Let's just go with Archer. That's pretty cool. Honestly. So that scene in Master Commander must have made you hoot then when you saw that, huh?
Do you know
You're
what?
like, phasmids!
No, it didn't.
Oh, really?
But now you
have to rewatch it.
Yeah, I've got to rewatch it with that memory in context.
Yeah, well, so what we're talking about, folks, is the stick insects. So stick insects, on a biological level, most people relate them to something very simple, which is like the fantastic camouflage that shows up. You can barely perceive them, and they move mostly so slowly. They're like kind of toys, but they'll blend right in with a branch anywhere they go. But when you start to examine the full panorama of phasmids, their physiology, their morphology is fascinating. And what I always wonder is this, evolutionarily, how did insects with this hard chitinous exoskeleton develop these amazing petal-like structures? You know, they look like leaves and flowers and bending twigs and sticks. How did that happen? And this is when you get in back to this Evo Bio thing, this Darwinian concept of the little changes over a long period of time. I've always said that yes, evolutionary biology suggests that it's little changes over a period of time, but something or someone has a beautiful paintbrush and is making little adjustments along the way. That's how I like to look at it. You know, there's no definite. We're never going to wrap our minds around the whole thing, but this simple, awesome idea that a bug can look like a flower to me is as cool as it gets. And the phasmids kind of lead the way on that too. Good. So, well, all right.
That's
imagine that. Well, everybody who follows the Insect News Network knows that in order to understand the microcosm, you have to make it macroscopic. And there's some businesses that really help you along the way. This booth right here, as everything is coming down around us, I'm so happy to meet Dan Saftner and Mark Smith here. They're the progenitors of Microscopic Solutions, a company that designs gear specifically to make the world of little things really big. So welcome to the Insect News Network.
Thank you very much.
It's nice to see you. Hi, Mark. Welcome
Hi,
aboard.
nice to meet you.
And this is for the Biathon. So everybody out there knows what it's like to understand, looking at little things to understand big ideas. If you want to step this way, just because they're going to move that down. So tell me a little bit about this technology and why it's so important to create these beautiful images.
So the significance behind this is that generally, if you think of macro photography, if you take a single exposure shot, you're going to get a very limited depth of field. So we're overcoming that by taking a series of images, basically taking slices through an insect or any object of interest, and we basically...
And you see how quickly we shift perspectives here on the Insect News Network? Welcome to part 2 of my interview with Microscopic Solutions. As you were saying, Daniel.
As I was saying, so because of this limited depth of field limitation, there's often a lack of data that you can retain from so many images. So we've overcome that by basically taking a series of images through an object and compiling only the in-focus areas of each individual frame so that the final composite image is entirely in focus, high resolution, very crisp and clear, and it's all automated with our system.
So it's the software that combines with, is it a particular camera technology that you market, or is it mostly the software side?
So it's both. We use both. It's both the camera components and as well as the software. So we sell an all-encompassing solution. So everything that you need to get from nothing to everything.
Wow.
So whether you are very knowledgeable in cameras and photography or not, whether that's the first time you've ever touched a DSLR, it's okay. Anybody can operate this thing.
User-friendly solutions.
Very
so
user-friendly.
And I like to tell people that we are understanding the world of the microcosm in our generation, 2014, the 21st century, in a way that no human society has ever been able to do, in great part to inventions like this and like what you're doing. Now, Mark, you said that you had worked with a very special gentleman to get this ball rolling, Tony Gutierrez.
That's right.
How do you know Tony, first of all?
So Tony was my neighbor growing up, and he was a really kind of a huge inspiration for me. Not only did I become a scientist, basically because of the exposure I had from him and in his lab, but this entire business sort of spawned from an idea that he had, which is basically taking photomicrography or at least the art of photomicrography, applying it in the sciences, and at the same time making a very compact, portable system.
Yeah.
So throughout that process, we met several people. We met some people, the builders of the Stack Shot. We met Rick Littlefield, who develops the software, Serene Stacker. So we sort of all came together and saw if we could somewhat sell their systems in a turnkey, easy-to-use fashion for researchers that are specializing in almost everything, from geoscience to entomology to even chemistry.
And of course, we talk about the fusion of art and science, but right here it's business, art, and science. If you can hear the words packaging and branding and efficiency and compact, these are all things that mean a huge amount to people who love insects, honeybees, and other pollinators because, of course, when you're out in the field, you got to get the shot right. This is not like shooting oak trees, folks. When you got to shoot insects, they move, and they move quickly. And the biggest issue, the most frustrating thing that anybody can deal with is that when that shot gets out of focus, right?
That's right.
Or the depth of field, they catches the leaf and behind the bug instead of the bug itself, right?
Yeah, we don't want that to happen. That's right. That's data loss, essentially.
And this is all digitized, amazing stuff. Now, tell me, what was your the insect that got you into entomology?
Whew, well, I'm a geologist.
So let me see. There's a pun in there somewhere. The rock beetle or something like that.
Yeah, really. No, I mean,
stonefly. There's the joke.
Go.
Beautiful.
All right.
Perfect, the stonefly. No, I mean, so we do have a third member. Her name is Annette Evans, and she is our biologist.
Okay.
So she's an entomologist. Her advisor is here. Her name is Dr. Jacqueline Beggs from the University of Auckland in New Zealand. And then she's slowly transitioned into herpetology, but is still involved in scale insects. So for her, I mean, she's the one who really kind of pulled me into bugs. And then like I told you, Tony was a huge inspiration to me. He was also an entomologist, so I became acquainted with insects and arachnids and everything else.
And I think Tony's distinction, and correct me if I'm wrong, but he's a tick expert, and he's dissected, he's investigated and identified like 30 different compounds that go into the bite of a tick to make it such a complicated cocktail. And not something that I want to ever have to sip at a dinner party. But now, what about yourself, Daniel?
So the way that I got into all of this was really just from working with Mark. I mean, we did our undergraduate studies together, again, studying geology at the Indiana University of Pennsylvania. And once we finished there, Mark went and did grad school. I went and did the Peace Corps. Once we both kind of finished up with those chapters of our lives, we kind of came back together and decided to kind of get moving with this whole project.
It's a great step in the right direction.
We had such a strong passion for all kinds of disciplines within science, and then also, we were getting interested in sort of the art and the business side.
Hey, you could use a gong. It would be easier. So now that we're wrapping up, we're forced to being wrapped up. We want to say a big shout out to everybody, the Yukon Huskies, right? You guys are working in Connecticut. All right, go Huskies. I want to say go Buckeyes just because I always say go Buckeyes. But just to bring it full circle, thanks for being on the Insight News Network. It's the last interview of the Beathon, apparently. And just remember, I end every radio show with the same thing: as you go throughout your day, it's a beautiful life. You're strong. You're beautiful. And you are perfectly you. And remember, it's a big world out there, and most of it's microscopic. Until next time, we'll see you on the other side of the horizon. Imagine that.